Hello friends and potential friends. Well, I think I mentioned the other day when I was canning those green beans and carrots that I was going to have to do some water bath canning. Well, I didn't realize how critical that need was. Before I get into that, let's see if we can dispel a myth or two. I've heard a lot of people say that they can't grow food because they don't have enough space. Well, if you've watched the trailer on my channel, you've gotten a bird's eye view of my garden. It consists of 7 4x8 metal beds. There are 2 2.5 foot by 8 foot metal beds, 1 42-inch round bed, and about a half dozen green stalk vertical planters, half of which currently are not being used because I was too lazy to set them all up. And I grow a lot of food out there. When I started the garden 10 or so years ago, it became apparent real fast that I can't eat the food that comes out of my garden as fast as the garden produces it. So I invested in a chest freezer and started taking all the excess and throwing it in the freezer and gathering it up. A few years ago, that freezer got full and I went out and bought a second freezer. And that was probably a mistake, but I needed it at the time, so I got it, and it didn't take long before both of them were filled up. Now, if you've seen the harvest pictures that I've been putting at the end of my videos recently, you know that I don't get a whole lot of a harvest every day. I get a handful, a few tomatoes, some green beans, a few carrots, that sort of thing. And I just gather them up and put them in the freezer. And then when I get enough in the freezer and I feel like doing it, I get out my canning supplies and start canning it for long-term storage. So the myth that you can't grow enough food to be worthwhile is just that. It's a myth. These are all the tomatoes I found in the freezer, and there could still be some more in there. I started collecting these ones spring, summer of 2022. So this represents about 2 years collection. 2022, I gathered up a bunch of tomatoes. The winter of 2022, yes, I grow tomatoes in the winter, and most years I get away with it. In December of 2022, we had a freeze that wiped out my tomatoes. You may remember my video on making fried green tomatoes. So the winter 2022 and 23 didn't count. There's nothing in here that really supports that year or that season. And then the spring of 2023, I gathered up more tomatoes before I left to go to my mom's place. And when I came back, I started tomatoes again. So this last winter I grew tomatoes and we didn't get a freeze. So I got a pretty good harvest out of that season. What you see right there, and I did the math beforehand because I don't do math in public anymore, that's 32 pounds of tomatoes that came out of my garden in roughly a year and a half. So don't try to tell me you can't grow enough food to be worthwhile in a small growing space. Now I've got to do something with them. Well, I got my ball book out, and I've decided, incidentally, that I'm going to can these in pint jars, and I'm just going to can them as whole or cut up tomatoes, because that's the most, it's the most useful to me. I don't need a lot of sauce. I've still got cans of tomato sauce in the pantry that I bought back when I was still buying stuff from the grocery store. So I don't need sauce. I figure if I can them as just whole tomatoes, then later on I can turn them into whatever I need to turn them into. I mean, I can blend them up and make more sauce, or I can make spaghetti sauce, or throw them in chilies or other soups, whatever I need to do. I figure that's going to be the most useful to me. The ball book tells me to pack tomatoes in water, whole, halved, or quartered. I need 7.5 to 10.5 pounds of tomatoes, 1 to 1.5 quarts of water, citric acid or lemon juice, and canning salt if I want to add salt to them. And salt is optional. That's just for flavor. So I need to go through these tomatoes, and I'm not going to do them all because I don't have room. I need to skin them, core them, cut them up into the size that I want in the jars, pack them into the jars, top it off with water, get rid of the bubbles, clean off the rims, and put the lids and rings on them. Put them into a water bath canner. Now I've got, pardon me for a moment, I've got 2 water bath canners here. One is an actual canner I got from Wally World. The other is my stock pot, and I can put 8 pints in each one of those. So basically I'm going to do about 2/3 of these tomatoes today, and that's probably going to be all I can deal with. So we'll start off with skinning them and coring them. Now I've found if your tomatoes are frozen, it's real easy to skin them. You just dip them in a little bit of water and the skins just kind of peel right off. I'll be saving all these skins incidentally, because once I get finished with the canning process, I'm going to put those skins into my dehydrator and turn them into powder. Once I have that powder, I can use that, for example, if I need some tomato paste. Take some of the powder, add a little water till you get the consistency you want, and you've got tomato paste. Don't want to let any of this stuff go to waste. So I'm going to go ahead and start skinning and coring these things and filling up jars, and then I'll bring you back and we'll start on the next step. Whew, that was a chore, and I only got halfway through the jars, and I barely made a dent in the tomatoes that are in the freezer. I managed to put together 8 jars, mostly the garden peach tomatoes, and then when I ran out of those, I switched over to regular varieties. So I've got 8 jars ready to go, and I'm getting tired, so I'm gonna stop at those. Let me tell you, peeling tomatoes, it's not difficult, but it is time consuming. And got a good set of skins, so those will be going in the dehydrator. But for right now, I'm going to get those 8 into my water bath canner, and then I have to bring it to a full boil, let them process for 40 minutes, and then they will be ready. Of course, after the 40 minutes, I'll let them cool for a while, then I'll take them out of the canner, set them over here and let them sit overnight. Then tomorrow I'll check the seals, and then I'm going to call it a day, because this kind of worn me out a little bit. Needless to say, I've still got lots of tomatoes in the freezer, and I'll be doing this again, but I won't make y'all sit through it the next time. So, I mean, I could show you putting them in the canner and turning the stove on. That's not very exciting. And so basically, I think that's what I'm going to do. And I'll see you next time.